Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. And good morning to those folks that are online. My name is Matt Bogosian, Executive Director of the American Manufacturing Communities Collaborative. And this is the 2024 Manufacturing Momentum Summit and Workshop. We're delighted to be here with you. We've got about 80 seats in this room, and we've got a whole bunch of folks that wanted to participate. So we have this online piece for day one where folks online, we have like 180 folks signed up online where they can watch the panels. The workshops are going to be just for folks here in person, and following the Chatham House rule. Just to encourage, it's the honor system to encourage conversation and have folks get out of their silo. We're all here to kind of strengthen the American project with the manufacturing cornerstone. And we'll be talking a lot about that in our panels and our discussions in the workshops. I have a lot of thank yous to give. Number one, to all of you all for being here and braving the storm yesterday. If you came in last night, that was quite a biggie. So thank you for being here. And I want to thank NACO, the National Association of Counties, which volunteered their place here. I mean, we need a meetup every year of regional leaders and all of the different federal agency and NGOs and other stakeholders that matter to the manufacturing ecosystem. No one can do it on our own, and we had. We told the story. We did a pregame call, which I think most of you probably saw. So I don't have to go through all of the history about how we got here, but we actually met in this room 6 or 7 years ago after the IMCP initiative with many of the leaders in this room. Said, we don't want to have this kind of bottom up federal policy intervention model to die on the vine. And so that's when AMCC was created, and the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program was created in the National Defense Authorization Act of that year. And so we're very grateful that NACO donated their space back then. And here we come when we needed to put something together, they volunteered their space. So fabulous. Thank you to Matt Chase and all the staff at NACO for really making this smooth. I want to thank, of course, our volunteer AMCC board of directors. So we have regional reps from around the country. Guy Latendre from Utah and Kelly Seward from the state of Washington. We've got in the room Carmen Molina Rios from Connecticut, and Deb Franklin from Kansas, and Christine Napo, who is in the room also from Cook County, Illinois. And then we have, of course, there's a lot of PhDs running around. AMCC's board has many PhDs. We've got Phil Singerman out there that you all met. A historic leader in the federal government and in regions around the country on our board, as well as to Linda Larson and Michael Goff, who is AMCC's fiscal agent at the Northeast Midwest Institute. So I want to thank him and all the board members, which includes Matt Fieldman from America Works, now at NatCast. We've got Sarah Lee from the state of Washington. She really in early days kept the AMCC work going forward. Michelle Burris from the Century Foundation, key on our board. Her predecessor at the Century Foundation, Andy Stetner, who's now at the Department of Labor, was a critical partner in helping AMCC come together. I'm probably forgetting some other folks, of course. We have our operations director, David Van Sicklen, in the back, who is the answer man on so many things here. So if you have any questions about anything, if anything needs to be corrected, David will correct it. Anything I say up here. No, awesome, not only on operations, but on the policy itself. So if you know, David, you know that's true. So those are all the thank yous. I'm sure, again, I've left a few people out, but a blanket thank you for folks being in the room and helping to make this happen. So the first thing I want to quickly do is just run through kind of where we've gotten after about 10 years. Good to see everyone in the room. And it really gets at the what, how, and why we're doing what we're doing. And we're going to be talking about this all throughout the day. And we talked about this a little bit on the pregame call in advance of this. But the what is, we're strengthening the American project in key manufacturing industries that are going to matter for long-term American prosperity. We need to make smarter products that solve problems and improve the human condition. And you could have your own list or whatever. We use this list as a shortcut framing for regional leaders around the country so that they're not overwhelmed by the complexity. We got Ben Linville-Engler here from MIT and Massachusetts Collaborative. He's going to talk a little bit about complex system science, but this is complex. It can be intimidating. We've got all of these different interventions from the public, private, and nonprofit sector. How can we strengthen the correlations between those different interventions and the outcomes that we're trying to produce? Well, it's doable, it's knowable, and we're on the journey, but we've got to focus on what are the products that we're trying to make in defense, energy, transportation, agriculture, IT, and health. And then, of course, we've got this incredible acceleration about new technologies coming in, right? So how do we harness those new technologies to make those products in those 6 areas, right? So that's really the what. And every region has got to add value to the American project. We can't just be this whole, 20th century, my region, is the best region, this race to the bottom thing. We are in a competition with dictators and thieves. We've got to organize ourselves better so we can move faster, stronger to make those products. So that's the what. The how goes back to that IMCP project that we talked about going way back, where we had 10 federal agencies working together to kind of bring their innovations or their interventions together in regions. We worked with the National Economic Council. You'll hear Sue Helper talking about that work way back when. And really, it's a thesis, hypothesis that we're building out over time. We call it the Big Six. And the work that happens in regions, kind of the way we say it often is that for a region to thrive in manufacturing, it's got to be operating sufficiently in all 6 of these areas. You can't be great in one or another. You got to do all 6 at the same time. And everyone has a role in it. It's not just the big shots in the room, and it's everyone in their organizations, the folks that are, technical folks in scientific and et cetera. You see the list, it's a short list, but every role matters if we're going to have this really carry out this collective impact theory of progress. And then, so that's the how, and then, and we're going to be talking about that. And this last decade has really had a lot of successes, and we'll be talking about that from the regional perspective. We'll be talking about that from the federal intervention perspective, and in the workshops and et cetera. But we can't lose focus of the why. And the why we do it is to advance sustainable development. And this goes back, really, this is kind of new 21st century lingo, but this goes back to really the beginning of our country. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness, you can make a strong argument that the best evidence framework for that in the 21st century, sustainable development, which is, of course, economic competitiveness. We've all got to thrive economically. That's critical, but we've got to do it in a way that includes all people, equity, environmental sustainability, and national security, what we can consider the component parts. And, under each one of these, we've got citations of things. On this one, we cite the 2022 Chips and Science Act. It's very cool. In that Chips and Science Act, they identify the great social and geostrategic national challenges for the United States. And that mirrors, it lines up very well with those 4 pillars of sustainable development. And so this is the framework that we break out everywhere. We have our 2, weekly activities that are national open source activities. One is the 30-minute national call every Monday at 11:30 Eastern time that we've been doing for almost 10 years. And then the AMCC update newsletter that goes out every week, that thanks to you and many of your organizations and your individual efforts is fused with important information that happens in the regions and on the national stage. So those 2 things happen weekly, but we ground truth this framework. When we do AMCC roadshows in person, we're ground truthing this framework this day and tomorrow when we're talking with you guys who have been all practitioners. Many of you, have been doing this for a decade also. And we got John Zeisman from, who wrote a seminal book in 1987 called Manufacturing Matters, which was prescient about, our shank, American shank at the end of the 20th century. And we outsourced manufacturing. And now we realize we need that cornerstone to be effective in the 21st century if we're going to thrive here at home and be the best example that we can be abroad. And you get there. How do you get there? Systems change, and this is mirrored after the new book by Marshall Gans at Harvard. He lists kind of the 5 key ingredients that we do. 4 of those all the time, all of us, right? We're building relationships. We're doing this in the room here. We're building a better narrative for our organizations, for our regions, for our nation. And then we're doing better strategies, right? And that we're going to talk a lot about that with the metrics work and the conversations today, to have actions, and then really get to our conversation tomorrow about, do we have sufficient structures in this country to speed the change that we need to make? I don't think anybody would say yes to that. And so we want to talk about with a lot of bright people who are been doing this work for a long time about how do we co-create better structures in this country to get sustainable development. So that's the overall framework of what we're doing. So we want this tested, retested, and your input throughout the day. We'll have this framework up a lot of times during the day. So thanks in advance for your continuing input on this. Now I want to turn to the agenda for the day here. This is the opening, and then you're going to see we're going to have NIST here, and Robert Rudinsky there he is. That's awesome. He's going to come up here in a second. A little bit about why is NIST on the agenda? I mean, we've got all of these different federal agencies, and Robert and I had a good conversation about this. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to tell everybody it's the only reason why NIST is going to be up here up front is because they said, hey, this is a cool thing. They came in and said, we want to sponsor it. So we're very grateful for the NIST sponsorship. And, the way the government works, you've got to, say, oh, what do you get for the sponsorship? And so NIST is going to be talking about, we're very lucky to have Robert here to talk about the humble take from NIST as one federal agency stakeholder amongst many federal agency stakeholders, amongst many important nonprofit organizations, to include many important regional leaders around the country. We all have to work together, and Robert certainly will model that. Then you can see the rest of the agenda. I'm going to be moderating a lot of this, just making sure everything goes on time. And so let me, you see the agenda up there. We'll talk more as we go, as I introduce the next thing. So without any further ado, let me introduce Robert. Robert, come on up and give us your take. Thank you.